grace and peace. Welcome to another episode of the TBT Show. I'm Anthony Moten. My friend and brother and partner in crime is the Right Reverend Elder Sean P. Aguilar. Sean, how are you today?
Man, better than I deserve. It is good to be and better to be with you.
Look at him. I thought about something a couple of days ago. My childhood pastor, Dr. Adams, used to say, "It's good to be on top of the ground and not the ground be on top of you." Yeah. Man, it's good to be back and another week, 2 weeks in a row now. Getting our sea legs back.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of things that I want to spend today kind of discussing and a couple things kind of readdressing.
Mm-hmm.
But the first, I know this is going to be, or this already is a very controversial subject. And
that's all we deal with is controversial subjects.
But this one is specific.
Yeah.
I even said, man, because I'm like, people would be surprised and shocked on, how certain people feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even Bishop Jakes is surprised.
I think he is
at how some people feel about it.
He is.
So we'll start with the excerpt from one of the recent sermons from Bishop Jakes. So kind of catch us up on exactly what was said. And I don't know why people are so sensitive, but anyway, exactly what was said, and then what's been the response or the backlash behind what Bishop Jakes said. I actually watched the entire sermon.
Right.
I wasn't surprised. I saw him going there,
right,
and he didn't lie.
Right. You can see where he's going. Yeah. I didn't watch the entire sermon, but I did for context watch, before and after, and kind of see where did you come from, how and then where you're at,
right,
and then where did you go after that,
right.
And so I mean, basically, he started talking about the argument that today's women aren't applauded for embracing their femininity. And I'm reading on an article from the Defender. This is a quote. This breaks all the sociological order of the culture we are living in now, because we are raising up women to be men. And you are not applauded for your femininity, the pastor continued, speaking to his female congregation. You are applauded in the contemporary society by how tough, rough, nasty, mean, aggressive, hateful, and possessive you are. And you're climbing the corporate ladder, but we're losing our families.
And again, I wasn't surprised that he said it one. Mm-hmm. And then I mean, you would think from knowing other stuff that he said,
right,
like that's his mindset anyway.
Right.
And then I'm not surprised. Okay, so here's my frustration.
Mm-hmm.
One, good biblical expositional preaching.
Mm-hmm.
It touches on, because I believe the Bible was written in for the concern of three different phases.
Okay.
One, there's an eternal truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's a truth for what was written to the audience then that it was written to. Then there's an eternal truth.
Right.
That what it meant then, what it means now, what it'll mean in the future.
Right.
And then there's a specific truth to the audience in which we preach.
Right.
Like, and he's now, let me say this. Bishop Jakes he's a great guy, and he's one of my model pastors.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as preaching, he does a lot of eisegetical preaching.
Right. And topical preaching.
But not a lot of exegetical preaching.
Right.
I didn't take anything from, this was a solid, for him,
mm-hmm,
a solid
application. Right. Yes. I mean, he's drawing application.
And he's speaking to where we are now.
Right. And he's speaking to an area of, spiritual need.
Right. Of where we are now. So here's my commentary. We are raising our women
Mm-hmm.
to be men.
Right.
And I'm not saying I'm working on a book now, and it's not a cheap plug. I'm going somewhere. Working on a book now, with for marriage enrichment,
premarital counseling.
Premarital counseling. My notes, and I'm putting together in book form. And the title of the book is "Before We Say I Do." And I feel like every couple needs to decide, as far as us as a couple, where our values lie. Right? Because at some point, you can't expect every responsibility around the house to be taken care of, and both parties do everything outside of the house as well. Something's gonna fall short.
Right.
And so in this culture where we live right now, you have men who are chasing a bag, women who are chasing a bag, and then our children are raising themselves. It's just what it is. And expressly in Black and brown homes.
Yeah.
So I didn't take offense to it, and I've been reading some other stuff and blogs and posts, whatever. And like after the fact, like people are leaving his church and they're super frustrated that he would say such a thing, and how dare he say such. I'm like, he didn't say anything that was offensive. It should make us look in the mirror, but I don't think it was offensive.
Right. Well, here's the deal is that, and just to frame it, is that this was a Father's Day message.
Right.
So it was like a month later, but someone posted, no one was upset until someone posted a clip of it. And basically it's like, hey man, you got Pastor TD Jakes up here sounding like Kevin Samuels. And that is what generates the outrage machine.
The fake outrage.
The fake outrage machine. So then you have so the headlines are also that there has been a significant decline in female church attendance after the fact, but not after it was preached, after it was highlighted.
Okay.
Which was a month after it was preached. So you have here's a quote from someone on social media responding to the clip. Y'all still asking women to shrink, still preaching to us as the problem and problem solvers, still shackling misogyny to virtuous womanhood and calling it God's word. Y'all still preaching and singing about love, but not living or leaning into it for real. We're still letting riffs, runs, and cadence tickle our emotions as the gift comes without repentance for folks really doing harm in Jesus' name. So this was a response from a lady on social media. And, the truth sometimes hurts.
Absolutely.
It is what it is. And, some people are going to have to take, accountability for, hey, look, this is what happened and this is where we are. And, sometimes it's like, hey, look, it's time to just drop the excuses.
Right. Right.
But I think that it especially stung because this was the woman thou art loosed pastor.
Right. But, and that's why.
You see what I'm saying? So then it's like, hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to be for me.
Right. All the time. And I think
and there you go. You hit it all the time.
All the time. That's the frustration because he was on point with women that are loose.
Right.
But he's on point with this one too.
Right.
Like you can't have and here's the truth from our culture. Man, God and I didn't want, this ain't a sermon, but God puts us in certain lanes and places so that the whole can run.
Right.
Like, so the man is the priest, prophet, and protector of his home.
Right.
That's God's design.
Right.
And the woman, according to the original language, the woman is the helpmeet.
The helpmeet.
But no one's asking women to shrink. And look, if your house works with, the woman chasing the bag and climbing the corporate ladder whatever, by all means, do your thing. But if there are children in place, like somebody has to sacrifice for the needs of the child.
And so, I mean, this comes from the Disney, what I call the Disney follow your heart mindset. So we've been fed by the culture, and make no mistake that Disney is a part of generating this in the culture. If you look at almost any Disney movie, you're going to find a line in there that basically comes down to you got to follow your heart. Meaning you can do whatever it is you want to do as long as you just sincerely believe that's what you want to do. You go out there and get it, right? So there's no room in the Disney follow your heart mantra for having your identity come from God's word. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Right. Because you can be not just all you can be whatever you want to be.
Right.
And that's what the current context and culture is trying to push forward. And so that tries to break up all kinds of traditional roles right. that are grounded in God's design, right. grounded in God's word.
Right.
And so then when you go from that mantra, then a young lady gets a little older and is like, okay, well, I'm a Disney princess. I'm a princess and I should be treated like a princess. You see what I'm saying? So then now they turn up their nose because they get on social media at anybody that's not a rapper, an athlete, because they've been ingrained, hey, follow your heart. And it's been ingrained that you're a princess. Does that make sense? So then whenever you become an adult, well, the princess is looking for a prince. So the average guy doesn't meet the standard that she's set for herself.
Right, right.
Because now it's like, well, if I settle for an average guy, even though she's an average girl, she's settling.
But see, and that's where our culture goes into that. And I don't know why we're highlighting Kevin Samuels, because he didn't start that.
He didn't start that. But here's the deal. He made the biggest impact that's in recent memory.
And so
he doesn't, I mean, there's not really a lot of unique talking points from him.
Right.
But what it was the tone, it was the tenor, it was, how quickly it spread widely because now we have YouTube and the internet and social media and things like that. So it blew up so fast and it's on the collective consciousness.
Right. And here's another, and I'm saying it's God's design because it's natural, right? Yeah. So we did for our son, and so I don't get those emails either. By no means am I saying that we're the standard, whatever, but we did for our sons, like their mother is the nurturer.
Right.
Like we're all going to play our part.
Sure.
But they know so like when Erica had Tay, she took time away from work. Like he needs to be with his mom.
Right.
Like, and I'm not saying you can't be successful in the corporate arena. You can, but right now for our family, there's a greater need.
Well, you can be successful in the corporate arena, but you can't have it all.
Right.
The thing is there's an illusion that anybody can have it all. But for whatever reason, it especially sticks in the female portion of the population that you can go to school, get your degrees, ignore family, ignore marriage, because you're building your career. You become a six-figure earner or a famous celebrity. Mm-hmm. And then also there's going to be some other person that is more successful than you that is going to wife you, that's going to, have all the sixes,
right.
That's going to be everything that you want in a man. He's a 6 foot tall, bodybuilder that writes poetry and he's the CEO of a company. You see what I'm saying? So, because again, you're a princess.
Right.
You're a princess.
Right.
So what do you deserve? You deserve a prince. And so, it's like somebody that was this unicorn that doesn't exist.
Right. Well,
some of those things exist, but they all exist in different people.
Right. Okay, so let me highlight this, and we could throw this around, because I believe if you have the type of mindset and fortitude to be rough and rugged and climb the corporate ladder of success and tell people at work what to do, very seldom
are you gonna go home
and be
and submit,
baby, what you need.
Right.
And I think that you said that bad word.
I know. I said that on purpose. I know it stung when I said it, huh?
That's a cuss word to us now in this generation.
Right. But it shouldn't be.
And so
Jesus submitted to the Father.
And requires every level of life requires some submission.
Right. You submit to your boss when you come in and clock in and out of work, or when
he requires it.
You see what I'm saying? So everybody has to submit in some way.
Right.
Does that make sense? To some higher authority.
Right.
I don't understand why it's this big problem.
And it is,
but it's like kryptonite.
It is. And submission doesn't mean
start melting.
Submission doesn't mean you don't have a mission.
Right.
Just under that. Right. Your mission is under that of something else.
And that's the problem. Modern women, and I'm going to specify this with modern women as opposed to traditional women, but modern women want men to be on their mission.
Then that would make him the helpmeet and not you.
But that's the point. But again, we're told in the Bible that your desire shall be for your husband. And that's not referring to sexual desire. That means that the woman will desire to be her husband in terms of role. So if you have someone that's a young lady, but she has this entitlement that's bred through childhood, follow your heart, you can do anything, you can be anybody, all that different stuff. Nothing about being a wife, nothing about being a mother, all that different stuff. Y'all are going to be Jay-Z and Beyonce, power couple, all this different stuff. And so there's no longer the grooming or the finishing school of, hey, the goal is to be a wife and mother.
Right.
And be the one that's going to nurture,
that holds the house together.
Yeah, that's going to nurture the children. And my deal is, women's superpower, they're trading and giving away because they want to be men so bad that their ability to be used by God to create and sustain life, they throw away. Look at all the backup plans that women have, okay? On the front end, okay, you have the expectation of chivalry to help you out.
Right.
Okay? Then as the sexual revolution came, in the 60s, then all of a sudden you have widespread contraception. So now you can fulfill all your natural, physical, sexual desires, but not have the pregnancy that's unwanted.
Right.
Does that make sense? If you slip up in your selection of a mate, of a partner, if you slip up there and the protection doesn't work in terms of a condom or some contraceptive, then if you get past that, hey, guess what we got for you? Abortion.
Right.
So now we give you another way out. So we'll go ahead and say, hey, so you're not inconvenienced, we'll just go ahead and murder a baby for you. So you can go on and continue to try to be and compete with men. And then when you get married, if you didn't do a good job of selecting a husband, then guess what? You can just divorce him, no fault divorce now. And guess what you get? If you have no kids, you get alimony to make sure that you keep up with the style of living you've been equating to. And then if you have kids, you get child support.
Right. I mean,
so the thing is that at every age, every stage,
you get out.
There's a way out, a way out, a way out, a way out. For what?
Right.
So that, because here's the other than the spiritual aspect, there's the economic aspect. Because now that there's women in the workforce, once that happened, guess what? So now every brand, every company now has twice as many customers available to them. Every government now has twice as many taxpayers available to them. So beyond the spiritual part, there's an economic reason that governments and corporations want women to work.
Right.
You're still going to have kids.
Right.
They know that, hey, that's going to happen.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So we don't have to worry about stopping that. We're still going to get new customers, new taxpayers every generation. That's going to keep going.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But once they do this, then that makes it easy. And then particularly to the African American community, what easier way to break up the black household in America than to tell the black woman you don't need the black man?
Right. You're a head. And anything with two heads is a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not opposed to women working. I'm not opposed to women, owning businesses and run your thing.
Right.
Do I mean you want the bag?
Proverbs tells us she considers a field and buys it. There's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with it. The problem is, what is the order? Because and that brings me back around is that the superpower of women is to bear and raise children.
Right. That's what a dude cannot do.
Can't do it.
Right.
And y'all and modern women are casting that aside for a job.
Right. And again, we're leaving our children to
they suffer in the wake.
Right.
They suffer in the wake of all that.
Or they're being raised by BET or YouTube and everything.
Baby Boy's tired of watching Baby Boy.
Right.
BET run Baby Boy 32 times a day. Baby Boy's tired of watching Baby Boy.
Right. And now it's on to, so now you got a whole nother generation. And that's what I think that's where Bishop Thomas Dexter Jakes was, because now he's the old guy.
Right.
He's a sage. Right. So now he's looking at life and ministry from 30 years deep now.
Right.
And he's looking ahead going like, man,
if this keeps going, we're on the wrong track.
We're on the wrong track. And again, that's why we submit to pastors, because pastors are our watchmen on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And they can see at a higher level what we can't see. And so when they're looking from a high level saying, hey, listen, we might want to consider this, then we can't get mad every time the truth stings and run to something else.
Say amen or say ouch. I mean,
right. But Bishop Jakes, doesn't mean much. I know it doesn't mean much, but I applaud you. Yeah. We're standing with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've been the voice of deep thought for our generation for a long time. And this created an opportunity for us to evaluate ourselves and see what direction we're really going. So those that are mad, in the words of my grandmother, scratch it and get glad.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it was just the truth. And
read your Bible and do what it says.
Yeah,
I mean, it's real simple. But we just don't want to we don't want to get right. And that's a sin issue, very, very simply. Yeah. And so on men's side of things, we have to do what we need to do in order to be the priest, the provider, the protector, so on and so. So that's not absolving.
Right. No, matter of fact, it's making men step up more.
Exactly.
And nobody's saying either, because I know this is going to come to, nobody's saying either that anybody suggests that a woman should always be in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant.
No, that's not what's being said.
But in doing both, one has to take priority over the other.
Right.
And so in doing both, if that's what you decide works for your house and it's a need, in doing both, understand the value is family.
Right.
Not finances.
Right.
Because again, we're pouring into the next generation to be more and to do more. And we can't do that if everybody's ripping and running, and I get it. And if you get to a point where you feel like your kids can self-sustain, whatever, but you got to at least spend that time to put the morals in. But everybody can't be the man. And even if you are the CEO at work, you got to come home and understand
Right.
that man is the CEO at home.
Right.
And if you don't trust him to lead, you married the wrong one.
Right.
You should have,
And that's the thing when I say about selection, is that, hey, think before, consider these things.
Hey,
before you say I do.
Before you jump that broom.
And so
y'all give me another couple months, and
right
before we say I do, will be out and in print, and and hopefully it will be thought provoking as well, and a lot of this kind of stuff will be included in it, because I believe there are some areas that we have to, consider and be thoughtful of and mindful of before we say those vows. And when we really talk about those areas, it'll make you think whether or not we should be saying those vows anyway.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you have some, you might have a couple that's like they can share a bed, but they can't share a bank.
And that's
so it's like,
right. So,
there's all kinds of different things when you're merging two lives together.
Right. And if I can't trust you with my bank account, but I trust you with my body, then that says that says a lot about your level of
where you place the value.
Right.
The most.
Right.
And
so that's definitely something. So anyway, Bishop Jakes, if no matter how many fans you do or don't have, just know that I'm pulling for you down here
Preach
in Houston.
The word.
Yeah, and
preach the word.
In the words of Big Daddy, simple, full, and free. And tell us what we don't want to hear sometimes. Again, there's a lot going on in our land and country. There was an incident with a Dillard's department store representative couple weeks ago. So Sean, catch us up on racist retail representative.
Right, the racist retail representative. So a Dillard's department store fires an employee caught in a viral video for calling a black man a effing N-word. So a black shopper in North Texas gracefully confronted an older white Dillard's department store employee when he heard the racial slur, and also his 10-year-old son. I watched the video in its entirety, and I applaud this this gentleman for how he handled the situation, because it definitely could have gone another way. And then even then, a lot of people wouldn't fault him because of the nature, the language.
Yeah.
But basically, this retail representative whose first name is Homer, like Homer Simpson, and he mumbled, under his breath after the gentleman just asked for some basic directions. And so then when he thought he was out of earshot, he mumbled the racial slur under his breath. But it was heard. And he read him. I mean, it's real simple. I mean, he didn't raise his voice.
Yeah.
Didn't raise his voice, but I mean, let him know in no uncertain terms. And I know that the staff was trying to keep this out of being something that would get management involved and whatnot. But I mean, that's not going to happen. It had to be addressed, and he was terminated.
As to who recorded it, but
it seemed like it was another family member, because I remember he referenced a nephew.
Okay.
So it was the gentleman, his 10-year-old son, and then another relative, I'm assuming is a nephew.
Okay.
That they were all together that was actually recording it. And he tried to give the Dillard's employee tried to give the lamest excuse that he hit his knee, and that was basically in place of an expletive. And I'm like, come on, man. Stop selling. Stop selling, because nobody's buying.
Yeah, right.
That's not it.
Right. And even in watching it, I was proud of him, because he took this moment that could have escalated, to be a lesson to his son, and said that he would go home and explain to his son, some of the unfortunate truths
realities
of life. And he displayed more poise than I probably would have. And I just had a discussion with my oldest, a couple of days ago about, holding yourself just because somebody said something. But I think that's the one thing that somebody could say.
Yeah.
That, and how you gonna mumble with no teeth?
Right.
Because I'm finna have some furniture moving.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Bust head to the white meat.
Yeah, to the white meat show. And just, because again, that language it means so much pain. Right. For our culture. Mm-hmm. Especially from
someone that's far removed from the community where it could possibly be
been kissed by the mother's son.
Right.
Let me say this
non-melanated.
Yeah, right. Let me say this to my white brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. No matter how frustrated you are, please don't say that.
Don't do it.
Please don't say those words.
Don't do it.
Those words are packed with some pain that you'll never understand or know. Mm-hmm. And how to get somebody to go from 0 to 99 is to say that word. I don't know if I told you a couple, maybe a month or two ago, I was in the store, one of my favorite spots, going to see, my buddy, my gun guy, John. And it was a Sunday evening. They were about to close, and I just stuck my head in to see, what they had, whatever. And I speak to my guys. I'm in there all the time. Speak to my guys, say, y'all good, need something to drink. I'm gonna go get, something to drink, bring it back, for them. It was a hot Sunday, whatever. And we're kind of chopping it up. I'm getting ready to walk out. Some guy comes in. He's mad because they're getting ready to shut down, in 10, 15 minutes or so, whatever. He wants to trade out of, something into something else or whatever. He's like, should have came earlier. We can't, whatever. Right. It's a white guy. And before he couldn't just leave. He had to say something on his way out. And so he said something, man, and I could just see my buddy, who's a Hispanic, I could just see him get red. And you would have to see him to see how hard that would be to see. Right. And he darted toward the door, and I grabbed him. I'm like, bro, I get it, but don't lose your job because he's stupid. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. But again, those words set, they set course of action, right, that there's no return from. So I'm encouraging us in moments of frustration, find something else to say. Don't say that, because ain't no telling what'll happen right after that's said. This man has lost his job and livelihood behind 2 words, and that's just it's sad to see, and it's sad that we're still here dealing
with these things in the year of our Lord 2022.
Yeah, we should be far removed from this, but it's sad that we're still here. But I'm happy that Dillard's dealt with it the way they did. Yes, because and then try to make a wrong right, which many businesses do just to save face. So kudos to Dillard's, and kudos to that father for letting that,
for how he conducted himself,
for how he handled himself, took care of himself, and then
good to see positive
right
black male images.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did want to touch on the issue with, because a lot of stuff has happened in the last 6-7 days. Yeah. So since we last
because literally it was the next day.
It was the next day when
that we got the sentence handed down for Brittany Griner.
Yeah, from Brittany Griner.
So if you listen to the last episode and you're like, hey, at the time of the recording, there was no sentence.
There was no sentence. Okay. But since then, she was sentenced to like 9 years.
9 years.
And that
is
that's excessive. Extremely heavy-handed. And then
extremely heavy-handed.
So the last time we talked about it, you said, well, we don't have any
I raised the question.
Yeah, and I said I'm gonna look into it.
Right, I raised the question.
And actually, and I didn't do it immediately, but one day I'm goofing around, looking on Google and some other stuff, whatever, and see this story of years ago. I don't even remember what year it was.
1980.
Golly, it's so
1980, 42 years ago.
Where Paul McCartney and anybody like me, we only know Paul McCartney because of one song, "The Girl Is Mine" with Michael Jackson. That's old school. You wouldn't know anything about that. So Paul McCartney was arrested in Japan, with 7 pounds of marijuana, and America covertly got involved, made some phone calls, and he was released. I think they said he spent 6 days in jail or 7 days in jail or something. But
9-day stint.
9 days in jail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, January 25th, 1980. 11 city concert in Japan. He was found to be carrying nearly half a pound of marijuana in his baggage upon arrival. The amount was large enough to warrant a smuggling charge and a potential 7-year prison sentence.
A half a pound gets you 7 years, and Brittany's looking at 9 for some hashish oil.
Hashish oil.
And this is, and again, I only pointed that out to say that there was some, we were discussing whether or not, if Brittany was different, would America do a little bit more? But since then, in America trying to do something, now making it political, there are certain Republicans that are trying to call out our Vice President Harris for what they consider to be.
Oh, this was actually a Democrat.
Really?
Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, yeah.
See, that makes it even more gooder. That they're trying to call her out for what they consider to be hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Because she's working hard to get Brittany released. And the question is, what about those other brothers and sisters that you helped lock up during your stint as
California AG?
Right.
Yeah. So
generally in California. And again, this is just a matter of discussion, because I believe once the majority of states in America made marijuana legal, every brother or sister that was in jail on some marijuana charge,
let my people go,
should have been released.
Yeah.
Because it can't be a crime one day and entrepreneurship the next.
Well, that depends if you got the complexion for the protection.
And that's the problem, though, because again, but that's the problem. Because most of I don't even know this.
It depends on what street you're on. If you're on Main Street or Wall Street.
And I don't know this to be a fact, but I would think a great majority of people that are locked up on marijuana possession, marijuana sales, are probably black or brown.
Probably.
Most. I mean, if white boy Billy can do it, and it's entrepreneurship, then I'm not even saying do anything special to reward them, but at least let them out.
Yeah. Well, whenever it's crack cocaine or whenever it's weed and it's black or brown, then, these are criminals, but if it's opioids, then it's a crisis. It's a crisis.
And again, it just points out something, and so, and I get it, but instead of saying, hey, let's get Brittany home first,
sure,
and then figure out
all this other stuff.
Right. What was done then, what needs to be done now, what we can do to rectify what was done.
This is the same old line of argumentation, like Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter.
Right.
It's like, hey, don't pay attention to the house on the street that's burning to the ground down right now. Instead of having the fire department deal with the houses on fire, just put a little bit of water on every house. Right.
Including the spot where the house has already burned down.
Right.
Because she's talking about when Harris was.
Oh, that's
decades ago now at this point. And so, and I get it, but, and I'm not saying that's not a topic of conversation. And I completely agree. And we should do something, even with the ones that are still locked up, as far as trying to release them, or if they have a record, expunging their record, or whatever, if it was strictly marijuana, et cetera, et cetera. That is a great topic of conversation.
Right.
But right now, get Brittany home,
Right.
and then let's talk about that.
Right. And this is just a political divide within the Democratic Party. This is someone that's, more progressive, that is left of Kamala Harris,
right?
That's trying to be like, hey, why are we doing this, making these efforts, and you're making no efforts for the people that are here at home in our judicial system,
right.
So on and so forth. So it's just trying to take opportunity to politicize a headline, and that's pretty much it.
And probably move herself up because
she was a presidential candidate. Tulsi Gabbard, at one point, she didn't really go very far.
And
she's a congresswoman from Hawaii.
And see that kind of thing, like, so it further proves that, and that's why I hate, and I'm saying I hate is a strong word. That's why I dislike very highly.
Detest.
Politics.
Yeah.
Because now you're removing the care and concern from people for just talking points.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, so, and she does have an argument. But if Brittany was flying around America with that oil, she wouldn't be in prison.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so, you have a point, but let's get her home. Because if she was here, there would be no prison talk. You know what I'm saying? Let's get her home.
These are two completely separate things.
They are.
You have someone that's dealing with, because here's the deal, is that Brittany Griner being a professional athlete or not doesn't change the facts of the situation. At the end of the day, you have an American citizen that's imprisoned abroad, and it just so happens to be a superpower that we're not on the best relationship, that we're not on the best terms with them right now, and they're using it as a foothold to give themselves a bargaining chip with us in those tensions. So that part doesn't matter, that she plays for the WNBA or that she's a millionaire, or none of that in terms of the argument that Tulsi Gabbard is putting forward. That doesn't matter. You have international and domestic.
Right.
These are two completely separate things.
Right.
So, and again, it's not that her argument doesn't have some validity to it, but that's a completely separate thing that's not related to Brittany Griner.
Right.
But Brittany Griner is in the headlines, and if you include Brittany Griner in the quote and you tie her issue to your issue, then you get a lot more traction.
Right. And then you get traction for what else
whatever else. Yeah. Then the next thing you say, Tulsi, what do you have to say about that?
Right. Right.
And so because of, chasing ratings, chasing viewership, chasing clicks,
and seeing that only
the whole deal.
And the thing I hate about where we are politically is while you're chasing that, you're actually turning the minds of some people that, maybe or maybe not could get involved, do something away from the real attention, which should be getting this girl who we know is being mistreated.
100%. Because I know in the last episode, it's like, hey, I still stand by hey, you have to obey the law of the land. But this is excessive and heavy-handed. 9 years. I was thinking 9 months with time served should be out in 3 months. I'm thinking, okay, yeah. But 9 years?
9 years.
I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Very.
But speaking of politicians who try to distract you.
Great segue.
How's that for a segue? Never before in American history, the FBI searches a former president's home. I'll give you one guess as to who that former president is. I'll let you go ahead. Give us a guess.
Where's the Jeopardy music? Let's say Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Winner, chicken dinner. You got it. Donald J. Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate is a high-risk gamble by the Justice Department, but Mr. Trump faces risks of his own, according to the New York Times. So, that was a big move.
Yeah.
Attorney General Merrick B. Garland, which remember was the guy that got railroaded out of a Supreme Court justice seat is the current attorney general. And guess what? He went ahead and said, okay, law enforcement operation at Mar-a-Lago, which is in Florida. And they put a search into his home, his safe, all kinds of different things. So
now here's what's crazy. And I don't know that they'll find what they're looking for. But what's crazy is how quickly some Republican voices have turned.
Buddy, they'll pray for you today and pray on you tonight, buddy. I gotta tell you, man.
So they've gone from, support the blue,
back to blue,
blue line, blue lives matter, to
defund the FBI. Just like that. Defund the FBI just because they didn't like that, the justice system might actually keep that blindfold on.
And right. And do what it's supposed to do, regardless of if you're the president of the country, the president of General Mills, or just a resident thereof. Right. Does that make sense? Right. So whether you're president or resident, the law applies to all, as it should be. Right.
But because it did not work out in their favor, all the talking heads on Fox News literally flipped their lid and are now sounding like Antifa.
Right.
The same thing that they were saying that, these left-wing, people are doing. Now they want to do the exact same thing, but only to the one, not to the CIA, not to the NSA, not to the people that are spying on us 24/7 all the time. They're listening, to your conversations at home through Alexa, all that different stuff. That's totally fine. But these guys that ran up on Trump, defund the FBI. Yeah, don't do that.
And see, honestly, I don't know what, and I guess until it manifests, I don't think anything will come of it.
Well, and that's the thing, is that it's a non-issue at this point. They're making more of it with, again, the fake outrage machine that it happened. But, hey man, you have a private citizen at this point.
Absolutely.
He's a private citizen.
Absolutely.
So, there's no get out of jail free card. And you shouldn't be able to, just because you were once in any, political position, that for the rest of your life that you can just live and act with impunity, regardless of what the law says.
Right.
What's the point of having a law?
Right.
If we don't have the rule of law, but except for this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. And
see, going back in time, watching certain interviews from him, especially when he was running against Hillary, and he made mention of those emails.
Ooh, but him, Ivanka, all did the same thing.
Same thing.
But whenever that came out,
Yeah, right. And it's now it's like, and again, I don't even think they see.
Oh no, they don't even have the slightest clue that they're hypocritical. They don't have this, and it's funny because sometimes I see these videos where they'll and Trevor Noah does it a lot with the Daily Show, where they take,
he's funny too.
Yeah, he's hilarious. And so where they take a Republican that's saying something, that said something in the past about an opponent, and then now they're in basically the exact same issue, and then they're juxtaposing what they said before and their current situation now.
Right.
Ted Cruz always gets tore up, but it's one of those things again. So I'm sure they'll wheel these out, a little later on, because something's going to happen where people are going to be outraged about something that happens to maybe a Democratic candidate or a Democratic politician. And they're going to play these clips. Right. Oh, well, hey, this is an invasion of privacy and this is unprecedented and we're in a third world country now and all this different stuff.
Right.
But this is political tribalism.
Right.
That's my guy. You did something bad to my guy. I don't like it. Right. So that means you're evil.
Right.
instead of, hey, hold on, let's take a look at the facts of the case.
Right.
What happened? Was it actually called for? And what's going to be the outcome of it?
Right. And let's deem right,
and wrong.
Right. So do you think, and I'm just throwing this out, maybe shouldn't put you on the spot like this. You think he'll be linked to the events of January 6th? Or but better question, do you think he'll be able to run again in 2024?
I think that what is happening is I think he'll be replaced by Ron DeSantis as the stronger voice, and that'll be the new Republican.
Really?
Yeah, he'll be the new Republican guy. What's going to happen?
On Dumb and Dumber, DeSantis would be dumber, right?
Well, what was before Trump?
If Trump is dumb, he would be dumber.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, we went from who was the last Republican? So we went from Bush, straight to Trump.
I guess you got a point.
You see what I'm saying? So to me, you're just saying that it's going to continue to get worse. Okay, but it's different worse. It's adult worse. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, whatever you feel, about that particular candidate, I feel like Trump is not going to end up going to jail, but he's going to be convicted in the court of public opinion. And right now, this whole process is just so that the Republicans can clear their conscience and wipe their hands clean of him.
Of the Trump.
They're going through a breakup. You see what I'm saying? They're going through a breakup right now. And right now they're stepping out on Trump with DeSantis. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So
I think he has a better chance of going to jail than losing in the court of public opinion.
I don't think he's going to go to jail. Because
if he doesn't go to jail, he's running in 2024.
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a possibility he could go to jail, but it's kind of like he's still one of us type of thing.
Right.
So we want him to be we want him to be embarrassed, and we want to distance ourselves from him, and we don't want him to ever, run for office. We want to be able to trot him out when we feel like it, but we want to destroy him being able to run again, but not make it the Republican Party's fault. He has to implode on himself. Does that make sense? And not harm any surrounding property.
Yeah.
So if we can get that to happen, and because the Democrats, at the end of the day, the politicians, they just don't want to deal with this guy. They'd rather deal with an adult. So I can imagine a deal would be made behind closed doors that, hey, look,
disappear.
We're gonna, what is left of his character to assassinate? But we're going, but we're going to assassinate his character, get him off the chessboard, and make it to where he's a non-factor in terms of actual politics. Is he still going to run his mouth? Of course. All that different stuff, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, if he's not a serious contender to have office, he's basically another talking head.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I think he's built such a large following.
Mm-hmm.
If there's some fear,
but they're also very fickle. They've turned. If you go back and look at even his own rallies, they'll turn on him. They'll turn on Trump for not being as Trump as he used to be.
Right.
Trump, you're not Trump enough. I'm serious. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's like, he'll say something that kind of tries to be an adult and clean some things up, and then they'll be like, oh, boo. You see what I'm saying? Because they want that. They want Trump to do Trump. They want to act. They want him to come out and be, take him out on a stretcher and lock her up. They want that. You have your favorite songs.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You have your favorite, acts that are musicians. You want them to play the greatest hits.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't come at me with new Coke. I want Trump classic. I want classic Coke. And so that's the thing, is that he can easily, lose the political portion of it, because if Ron DeSantis comes up on the right of him and he out Trumps Trump and he's actually in political office, Trump can be out Trump, because now we got your playbook.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Right. Now,
we don't need you.
He came out of nowhere.
Right.
Does that mean he came out of nowhere? So there's no playbook.
Right.
And anytime you don't have game film on your opponent, you're at a disadvantage.
Right.
But guess what? Now we got you on record for 4 years. We have, you continuing to talk January 6th, all that. You got a lot of bruises, a lot of, cuts over your eye. So it wouldn't be difficult.
Right.
And especially because of how fickle the mob is, because we are dealing with a mob mentality.
Right. Absolutely.
So the mob is fickle. We watch Gladiator. The mob is fickle.
Right. Right.
And so they can turn one way or the other way. But again, if he's not doing their greatest hits, and again, this all makes Trump look weak.
Right.
And Trump's big thing is his ability to make himself appear stronger than he really is.
Right.
That's really his superpower.
Right. Right.
But the more he's made to look weak, the less people will be like, okay, well, he's not as dangerous. And also every time he endorses a candidate and his candidates lose, that makes him look bad. Or when he's not even cogent enough to tell us which Eric he endorses. He endorses 2 guys in the same race that have the same first name.
Right.
So, oh, well, yeah, I endorsed the guy that won. Of course, that's the Eric I meant. So, and then, and also you're talking about a guy that buried his ex-wife on his golf course for a tax break.
Yeah.
Lest we forget.
Yeah.
Lest we forget that little tidbit that came out, a couple weeks ago or 10 days ago. Ivana Trump
is on hold 9.
Won.
Oh, wow.
Look at the double entendre there. The first hole. So it's like that's what Trump thinks.
Right.
Of his wife that bore his children. His favorite child is Ivanka. That's Ivanka's mother, and you bury her on a golf course next to the first hole, and it's not even like
the lemonade thing.
Elaborate. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Not what you would think, because when you think of, okay, it's a Trump property, you think, oh, it's got to be gold, this and extravagant that, and fountains and dolphins and angels.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
A hole in the ground with gravel on top, buddy. I mean, it's really depressing. It's sad. I'm like that. That was a new low.
Right. And that's hard to get to.
And then watch this, charging her estate membership fees.
Wow.
And because there's some loophole in New Jersey tax law that because she's buried there, they can consider a portion of the course a cemetery, and now they're exempt from tax exempt. Buddy. I can tell you, the dude's not dumb.
Yeah.
So anybody that tries to say, "Oh, well, he's an idiot," no, he's that's one thing he's not.
Yeah.
That's one thing he's not.
He just needs to use his powers for good and not evil.
Good and not evil. Right.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, that was especially disgusting that you bury your ex-wife, the mother of your children, on a golf course for a tax break. That's who you're dealing with.
Right. Yeah.
So did Ron DeSantis do that?
No. Golly.
Speaking of slime.
Right. Well, at least, and it's some local slime, and it's been going on for
going
for
from
a while.
National to local. News here.
Right.
But I know you're more familiar.
Well, there's and I don't even I'm saying I'm more familiar. My first, this is in the same community of the first church I was ever called to. Just a couple blocks from
and I grew up not too far away.
Really?
Yeah. 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is actually blocks from
10 max.
Where Pure Light was, one of the cornerstone communities in Houston, 5th Ward, Cashmere Gardens, where they actually won a lawsuit for contamination, and it's been going on for a while. Union Pacific Railroad. I
don't think they won. They issued an intent to sue. Okay. There's a 90-day period before they sue, but it was just an accomplishment for them to get to that point. that, hey, that the city will sue Union Pacific.
Because they've been researching it for a while.
Now it's
Union
conclusive.
Pacific has property that runs through Fifth Ward and Kedgeman Gardens, and homes near the property. They cited that those residents, a lot of them, a great portion of them, were dying from cancer.
It's 5 times.
Yeah,
it's 5 times whatever the state or national average is in terms of like leukemia and other cancerous
matter of fact,
conditions.
I just buried a couple weeks ago a woman that was like a mother figure to me, Dora Goldberg, who stays blocks from
this
the Union
site.
Pacific.
Wow.
And who passed because of cancer as well. And so trying to make that connection to what they have. And again, I'm eager to see what the powers that be in our city will, because I think that was some of the holdup in years past.
And also it's collaboration between the city and the county.
Well,
so now you have Rodney Ellis, Sylvester Turner, joining together, and so the lead counsel I think is going to be the Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee, and an organization of private citizens called the Bayou City Initiative, led by Jim Blackburn.
Jim Blackburn, great guy.
Yeah. And also we want State Senator Boris Miles was also part of the conference. The conference where they let everybody know what was going on. But I mean it's undeniable. The science is there, the soil samples. And so now Union Pacific has 90 days to settle before it goes to court. And they're probably well served to settle this.
I'm sure they will.
Because
I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
And I'm just, and this is, Sylvester Turner, who's the mayor, for too long and for too high a cost, UP ignored and disrespected these communities. Cost is too high and the burden on these residents is too great. So it looks like they have the support of city leaders, and so that's good. And I guess with any company the size of a UP, you need the collaboration of city council, city, county,
right? Because everybody's got to be on the same page.
Everybody has to be on the same page, and so prayerfully it'll be some benefits to the residents of Fifth Ward and Kedgeman Gardens, because this needs to be addressed sooner than later. And so that's some good news. I hated it's had to be so long. But again,
you're looking at what, like 30 some years?
Yeah.
And it was early 90s, somewhere in there.
And I remember the first story that was released, had to be, if not late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So again, I hate that it's had to be so long, but better long than not at all. So again, to those residents in that, Fifth Ward is always home to me. Never got a opportunity to live there. My parents rented a house on Margarita Street.
Okay.
This was prior to me being born, though. And then I got my first church was, still family that I'm connected to this day. So again, our prayers and thoughts are with them, and prayerfully that whole situation can be resolved rather quickly. So is there, Sean, you have anything else going on that you want to mention, plug?
Yeah, not an event, but just, bear in mind that it was the school year. We're back to school. And so just for everyone to keep in prayer, keep lifted up in prayer, our children that are going back on campus, teachers, faculty, staff, educators, administrators, everyone that's involved with, educating our children, and our children themselves, because that's always a big change. And we just pray that, it's a smooth transition and that everything go well. Whenever we first started the podcast, we've discussed, multiple different issues. And so I just pray that this school year we can get through this entire school year and for years and years to come without incident.
Right.
So
Right. And thoughts and prayers with all the teachers, educators. There's a back to school giveaway at the Wing Quarter.
Yes, there you go.
On OST by Stacy Childs, our friend and sister, and she has pulled together her friendships to pull off this back to school campaign on the 13th. And so if you're in that area, definitely go by. If it's nothing more than tell Stacy and her crew good job. Know that our thoughts and prayers are with them as they volunteer their resources and their energy and effort to make sure that our kids have what they need as they start school. And so, again, and to every school teacher, school administrator, whether you just work on the campus, whatever that field is for you, that God's grace and peace be with you this year, and that we can be all that we need to be for our children to be successful both in and out of the classroom. So especially to the children of Northeast Houston and congregants of the Restoration Church and Good Shepherd and every church in Northeast Houston and every church in our city, that you're going back to school. We're praying with you and for you for not just a good start, but a good school year, the entire year. So if there's nothing else, again, watch out for each other, cover each other. There's a lot of things going on in our city. And so pray with and for each other, and then look out for each other. Keep our eyes peeled. If we can help, do so. That'll make our city better, our state better, and ultimately our country and world better. So again, until next week, grace and peace, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the TBT Show.